welcome to GameSack, and once again, we're talking about games that were never brought out of Japan for everyone else to enjoy.
Yeah, this is going to be our 5th episode of maybe 10 or 20 or something.
Who knows?
I don't know. There's a lot of games that never came out that we're probably not even aware of. I mean, there's a ton of them. Even for this episode, there's some games I wasn't even aware of.
Really? Games that I was talking about, I imagine.
Yeah.
Not games that you were talking about because you know you were talking about them.
Well, of course I knew what I was talking about.
Anyway, I've got the first game, so let's take a look. Here's Frey in Magical Adventure, also known as Frey CD and sometimes even as Frey Zack Gaiden. We'll just call it Frey. Anyway, this is a CD game for the PC Engine Super CD-ROM in Japan. Frey is a blue-haired girl who runs around blasting enemies with her magic wands. It kind of plays like a poor man's Etoile princess if you remember that from our X68000 episode. This is a spin-off from the Zack series and it takes place during Zack 2. I don't have any of the Zack games, so unfortunately I can't show them to you at the moment. Anyway, the hero from Zack saved Frey from an animal and she still dreams about him while attending magic school. Now, I'm not really sure about the rest of the story, but I imagine we're saving the universe as we know it. One thing's for sure, there are lots of monsters and the like that want you dead. You can fire at them or hold your shot for a powerful blast. If you have a magic icon, charging your shot will release it. Between the action stages are towns where you can get clues, buy items and weapons, as well as save your game. There are NPCs to talk to as well. Some of them will even help you out, like the Japanese Moses here, who will part the sea so you can continue on your journey. Thanks, Japanese Moses! The gameplay is mostly pretty easy to figure out, but I really wish I could shoot diagonally. Well, I guess you kinda can if you have the right weapon. This game can get really frustrating. Precision jumping is absolutely required in some areas. The controls just don't feel like they're up to the task. The graphics are nice and bright, but there really isn't much in the way of animation here. The music is bouncy and cute, but to be honest, it starts to get a little annoying after a while. And there is a ton of voice in the game. It pauses to load voices quite often and everyone wants to talk. For example, this boss has something to say between nearly every single attack she throws at you. It really does kind of kill the pacing of the game. Oh well, at least when you defeat her, you get to blast her top off. Still though, it's a fun game and you'd probably have a good time with it.
This is Ganbare Daiku no Gensan for the Super Famicom, but we know him in the West as Hammerin Harry. This particular version for the Super Famicom never made its way to the Super Nintendo. Hammerin Harry is a fitting name as a hammer is Harry's weapon of choice. This is a side-scrolling action game by IRAM and is one of the many Hammerin Harry games released in the arcade, various Nintendo systems, and the PSP. I actually really like this game and had a lot of fun playing it, but I gotta say it's a bit on the easy side. Your hammer can be upgraded, you can get shirts that will let you take more damage, and you can collect a screen clearing special. It'll release stars from your hammer if you activate it from the ground, or it'll just clear the screen if you activate it from the air. You play as Harry, and you know what, that's all I know about the story since I can't read Japanese. It's not a problem though, as there's no real language barrier here at all. Sure, you'll miss out on what might be a really great story, but who cares, right? The action is solid and the control is really good. Just like in real life, beating people up with a hammer feels very satisfying. Graphically, the game is great with nice backgrounds and lots of color. The characters take a bit to get used to as they're short and huge all at the same time. There's not a lot of variety in the enemies, and I'm okay with that as they're not super ugly or anything. The music is okay. For some reason, I really like the music in Stage 3. The melody is really kooky and I like it. It's kooky. I think this title would have been a great game for an English translation and brought to America, but it wasn't meant to be. Try it out if you can, you might like it.
You know what time it is.
Remember when we talked about Tempo back in the 32X episode? It was a game where you start as a bug doing musical things on some kind of TV show, or something like that, I don't know. Anyway, he had a sequel called Super Tempo and it was only on the Saturn in Japan. I'll just start off by saying that I like this game a lot more than I like the original. I could just never really get into that one. This time you launch bubbles at your enemies. You collect musical notes and these are used as currency to buy stuff for your house. This time you play as both Tempo and his main Squeeze. Certain levels will let you switch between the two while other levels are dedicated to one or the other. Some of the levels even have objectives. Like this one where I can't pass through this door until I find the ghosts of all 4 animals. Tempo's girl can fly and reach high places, so you'll definitely need her to find and revive some of the dead animals. There's even a shooter level which pays some tribute to old classics like Missile Command or even Asteroids. That's pretty cool. Or how about this? Yeah, he's pissing out an entire waterfall there. Why? Because Japan, that's why. The boss fights are always inventive and fun. Basically, you've got to wait until you get the special icon before you truly have the ability to win. On the first boss, Tempo becomes a massive steroid monster, and you need to keep pounding down on the button to give him more steroids so he grows faster than the boss and pops him. Or this one where Tempo's girl gets boxing gloves and she has to punch her way to victory. You gotta have some quick reflexes in this one. There are also mini games which can be played for a price, kinda like arcade games. My favorite is this one where you need to eat the pizza while your bug wife isn't looking. She doesn't want you eating pizza or doing anything even remotely enjoyable, and she'll let you know it. I really like the graphics. They're drawn really well and they're nice and clean and overall a joy to look at. The music fits the game, though it's nothing tremendously special. So why didn't this game come to the US? Well, maybe it had something to do with the pissing bugs. Or that it was 2D, you know, I don't know. But the Saturn definitely could have benefited from having this out everywhere else besides Japan.
Genji Tsushin Agedama was released on the PC Engine at the end of 1991. It's based off of the anime of the same name, but don't ask me anything about that as I've never heard of the anime until I started playing this game. This is an action platformer with a forced scrolling screen. In all honesty, sometimes when playing this game I really feel like I'm playing a shmup as it plays fairly similar. Your character controls really well, which is great, as there are some areas in this game with lots of platforming. An auto-scrolling game with lots of small platforms and enemies to shoot makes it easy to miss said platforms. Don't worry though, because if you miss a platform you won't die, but you will lose one part of your life bar. The auto-scrolling stops at the second half of level 5. I don't know why it does this, but I thought it was kind of interesting. You have a small pea shooter for your basic weapon. Along the way you will pick up icons which give you more powerful attacks. There are 5 different types of attack power. These are done by holding the 2 button in, which fills a meter at the top of the screen. You can stop the meter at any time and this will fire off whatever attack power was highlighted on the meter. The system works pretty well and all of the attacks are helpful. I only had one problem with the control. Instead of ducking when you push down, your character does a somersault forward. It works fine in evading enemy attacks, but it also helps you fall off ledges and platforms very easily. The graphics are good with lots of color and some areas with nice scrolling effects. The music is great and it works really well with the action. This is definitely an import-worthy game and it's not priced too badly, so it might be worth a look if you're interested.
Zero Gunner 2 is an overhead shoot-'em-up for the Dreamcast. This one's a little different from most shooters since you can rotate your ship in any direction instead of only being able to fire forward. You'll need to do this a lot as enemies will constantly come from the area you're not shooting and the screen scrolls in pretty much every direction. It can take a little time to get used to the controls and sometimes you might find yourself stuck in a certain direction, unable to turn around the way you want to in time. Ouch. You can choose from 3 different helicopters in the beginning. They each control the same, but they just have different weapons and special attacks. For example, the Hokum here has a very wide purple shot, the Apache has a narrow, concentrated stream of bullets, and the Comanche has a powerful solid beam that blasts intermittently. The stages are always presented in a random order, which I kind of find interesting. I guess they were just trying to keep things fresh with each playthrough. Each stage has about 3 different bosses that you need to battle your way through. And of course, sometimes a boss will eject part of itself and then you'll have to go and defeat that. You also pick up tons of little blue energy chips or whatever they are. They charge a meter on the left which regulates your special attack. Every enemy in the game leaves these energy chips behind when they die. As far as power-ups go, red enemies leave icons which will power up your main gun a few levels. The graphics are really sharp, smooth, and detailed. It all just looks really nice. Some of the music is kind of mediocre, but some of it's really good too. Too bad it's relatively quiet and there's no way to turn it up. This is a fun shooter that doesn't take its gameplay too far into the gimmicky realm like some other games, and it's easily accessible to non-Japanese speakers. Check it out if you like shooters.
You know, Joe, I love doing these Left in Japan episodes, but there's one thing that just drives me freaking insane.
What's that?
Was pronouncing some of the names of these games. I mean, they're...
Oh yeah, the two you had were pretty
Yeah,
good.
and I know I hacked them up pretty good, but, you know, the games are fun, and my Japanese is horrible.
Yes,
so.
it is. Anyway, the next one you've got is, well, it's not really a tongue twister.
No.
I don't think it was called this in the U.S. It was called Robotech.
Yeah, Robotech, Macross in Japan, I guess.
Yeah,
and
so
maybe Europe, I don't know.
Show us a Macross game then.
The Super Dimension Fortress Macross was released on the Sega Saturn in 1997. It's a shooter that follows the anime entry titled Do You Remember Love? I don't. Before every level, you're treated to snippets from the anime to help progress the story. There is so much animation here that the game was released on a 2-disc set. Stages 1 through 5 are on the first disc and 6 through 10 are on the second disc. You must have a game saved after stage 5 in order to access disc 2. Yes, the game does save, which is the first hint that this isn't a hard game. And you also have infinite continues. It's fine though, as the game is enjoyable for the cutscenes alone. Graphically, the game is just okay. Everything is discernible, but it's all pre-rendered and looks really jaggy. I wonder what this game would have looked like if it was all hand-drawn. Wow. Gameplay-wise, it's pretty much a pushover. Enemies are thrown at you on 3 different planes. The first and third plane can only be hit with your missiles, and the second plane with missiles, machine gun, and a bomb. It's really weird, because with this setup, your missiles become your weapon of choice. They lock onto enemies automatically, and all you have to do is hold in the B button to lock on and then release. Keep repeating this over and over, and that's enough to walk through pretty much the entire game. It's kind of cool for a while, watching your missiles fly and seeing their trails, but it becomes less cool later on because you're constantly using them. You can transform your ship into all 3 modes, but I find the jet fighter to be the best and pretty much remain that way. The music is straight from the anime, and it works really well. It definitely added to my enjoyment of the game. All in all, the game is pretty average, and it will be a cakewalk for most shooter fans. But if you do like Macross, you most likely will enjoy this game. And if you don't like it, then this is not for you. You decide.
Tryrush Deppy is a really hard game to find for the Saturn by Nihon Create. Basically, the world is inhabited with living cars. You're a taxi cab, and from what I gather from the intro, you're about to race, but you quickly get trampled. Then suddenly you're in a side-scrolling platformer just trying to make your way to the goal. Your gas is constantly running out, so be sure to grab cans of gas whenever you see one. Like any car, you can jump and you also have a dash attack. The dash attack uses up a little extra gas. This attack can also be charged for a far more powerful attack which uses up a lot more gas. You're shown the weak point of the bosses before you fight them, and hitting that point can be tougher than you might think. You also collect little pink neon stars, and truthfully I'm not sure what they do, probably just points and eventually an extra life. But speaking of those, there are star rooms hidden around some of the levels which let you collect even more little pink stars. The graphics are really good. I like the art style and the colors are fantastic. The scrolling is also really nice. Even the music is pretty good. So why didn't Tryrush make his way out of Japan? Well, to be honest, this game really isn't that great. The controls are very slippery and Tryrush moves for quite a while after you let go of the controller. Timing and aiming your jumps is also a bigger chore than it looks. When you take a hit or attack a point of a boss that's not the weak spot, your recovery time is annoyingly long. Also, sometimes the police will pull you over for no reason whatsoever other than just to waste your time. Earlier I said that this game is hard to find. Maybe that's because no one's really looking for it.
Lupin the Third for the Super Famicom is a fairly fun game. I've actually watched quite a few Lupin TV shows and movies, so I'm familiar with the characters, unlike some of the other anime-based games I've mentioned in the past. As you would expect, you control Lupin throughout the entire game. The other characters only make appearances during cutscenes. And of course, everything is in Japanese, so I don't know what's going on or how the story is unfolding. I wish I could understand it, as I'd probably enjoy it. Anyways, the game plays as an action platformer. The majority of the levels are mazes, and basically you're just trying to find the end. As you make your way through each level, you have items that you can use to help you reach your goal. Lots of really cool things for you to use, like a grapple rope, dynamite, a gun, and shoes that let you jump higher. Most items are limited, so you'll need to pick up icons along the way to replenish them. You use the shoulder buttons to scroll through the items to select the one that you want to use. It works fairly well, but can get kind of annoying in certain situations. For example, you're low on health and you need to replenish your life, but you're busy fighting an enemy with your gun. You can't use both, so you must pick what to do first. Heal or kill your enemy. It could be fatal if you make the wrong choice. You could die! Lupin controls fairly well. I did have a few problems with the jumping mechanic. I never died from it, but did lose a bit of health sometimes. Graphically, the game's not too bad. There isn't a lot of variety in backgrounds, which kinda sucks, but on the other hand, the music is very enjoyable and sounds really good. I had a great time playing this game, and I'd recommend it to anyone looking for a different experience on the Super Famicom.
Kaze no Densetsu Xanadu 2, or Legend of Xanadu 2, is an action RPG for the PC Engine Super CD by Falcom. You play as a character named Arios, and your companion is Daimos. I'm just guessing on those pronunciations, by the way. Anyway, you're searching for some friends whose ship was attacked by dragon riders. Ooh. Just as you'd expect, there's lots of wandering around towns, talking to NPCs, and getting items that you need to get further in a game. The battles are very similar in style to the early games in the East series, as you just bump into the enemies to attack them. You actually do get to see the attacks happen though, unlike in East. Now this bothers some people a whole lot, let me tell you, but you know, it really doesn't bother me at all. It's fun. Enemies leave behind little jewels which are used for currency as well as other random items like health. When you fight a boss, the action switches to a side view style where you have to swing the sword yourself. You can also shoot upwards and jump to dodge attacks. But that's not all, you can also charge your attack by holding down the button, and you'll find yourself relying on this quite a bit. The control here is a bit loose and fast, and it kinda reminds me of East 3, but it's good enough to get the job done. Of course, figuring things out when everything is in Japanese is a bit tough, and you'll have to do a lot of guesswork about what needs to happen in order to trigger the next event. I've heard an English translation is in the works, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. I wonder if they'll translate all of the game's cutscenes. I don't know, that would seem like a rather daunting task. The graphics are really nice, and they stand up there with the best 16-bit RPGs. They really shine when you fight the bosses. The music is pretty good, though it's all generated by the system and very little of it actually comes off of the CD. I really like this game, it's super fun to play, and we could have definitely used more games like this outside of Japan, especially on the Turbo.
Here's Magical Poppin for the Super Famicom. And of course it's another game that never made it outside of Japan, or obviously I wouldn't be talking about it now. That's a shame too, as it's a terrific game. It's a side-scrolling platformer with lots of charm. You play as a girl on a quest to retrieve some stolen gem or something. Not really an interesting story, but who cares, the gameplay is what you're really here for. As you make your way through each level, you can collect hearts which will increase your life bar by 1. You can also collect princess icons which will give you an extra life once you collect 3 of them. Also, each level has a special item you collect, which can be anything from a sub-weapon to an ability that helps you clear a level. Like this swinging rope thing that lets you grapple onto certain objects to get to higher areas or clear large gaps. I had lots of trouble with this mechanic, and I'm fairly convinced it's actually me with the problem and not the game. Everything else actually controls very well and is very responsive. There's lots of platforming in here, but it's nothing real difficult and it's just simply a fun game to play. All the levels are very colorful with nice detail and lots of different locales. Fighting enemies is a breeze, and each area has a mid-boss as well as a final boss, neither of which, of course, are really very hard. The music is really enjoyable, but a bit on the quiet side. I really liked a lot of the melodies in here, so they should have made it at a higher level. A lot of people will want to play this game, but once they see how much a damn copy goes for, oh man, it makes it quite a bit less desirable.
Alright, and there's 10 more games that never came out of Japan for whatever reason, unless you imported them or bought a repro card or emulated them or whatever.
Yeah, we were very deprived as a gaming society, Joe, here in the United States, and it sucked. But, you know, at least we found out about them now, and we're able to bring them to you. Hopefully you've haven't played all of these games and learned something new.
Oh, you know they all have, and they'll let us know.
They'll let us know.
So, anyway, what are some other games that you'd like to see on Left in Japan 6 when we get around to making that? We love to hear your ideas because we often find games that we've never even heard of.
Yeah, definitely.
So, in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
Check this out, Joe. Look at this import game I just won on eBay.
What is it?
It's the Davis Cup tennis for my PC Engine.
Oh, is it any good?
Oh, are you serious, dude? It's tennis. It's awesome.
How's the music?
The music, it makes you just want to play tennis. I love it.
Oh, very Tennessee, huh?
So I was thinking about covering this in our next episode.
I don't think people really want to see that. They didn't care about when we covered sports. Why don't you cover one of my games? How about this one? People want to see this.
What is this? Forever with Me? What is this? Some sort of love game?
English titles on the side. Other side, idiot.
Chico Asabar Paradise? Paradise?
Can't you pronounce anything?
I read it verbatim, dude. What are you talking about? Well, you pronounce it.
Fine. GQ Asiaberry Paradius.
Oh, yeah, right.